It was a beautiful day in Nookville. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, and everyone was out having fun in the nice weather. And the life seemed perfect for Mayor Sapphire when she had married a wolf named Kyle about a year ago. Things were very happy for about a year. Kyle was elastic when he learned that he was expecting a baby girl. The girl's husband in question at the moment coming home from the grocery store to buy sugar after a hard day of working like he normally would do. He had been out for a while when he had just thought about going home to make dinner. It didn't take long for him to reach his wife's house. Kyle climbed up to the front steps and Mayor Sapphire's house and opened the door. "Hey Sapphire, how's my sweet baby girl?" Kyle asked Sapphire. Did you mean me or the little one?" she replied with her hand on her stomach. "I meant both, silly," Kyle joked. Sapphire smiled sweetly at him. "Well, besides the little loneliness waiting for Daddy to come home, I guess we're both okay." She wrapped her arms around him. "How did this human girl like me get to be so lucky to have a wolf like you?" Sapphire asked. Kyle said, "Well, luck just doesn't have anything to do with it, Sapphire." She thought if her life couldn't get any better. Then without a warning, the house began to shake. "Huh?" said Sapphire, looking around for some source of the sudden vibrations. "What was that?" Kyle asked. Suddenly, Sapphire heard a faint whisper. "Get out! Get out!" Her eyes grew wide and her hands started to tremble. "Are you okay?" asked Kyle. Sapphire then turned towards the wolf with goldish black fur and grabbed his hands. "Sometimes I just worry of what kind of world our baby is going to grow up in," she replied. Suddenly, the house began to shake again, and pictures started to fall off the walls. "Honey, we have to get outside, quick!" Kyle shouted as they started running out of the house. They both watched in horror as the windows began to burst and the exterior began to crack. Get out now!" a mysterious voice said, causing Sapphire to run away. "Where are you going?" Kyle asked and called, flailing his arms. "I need to run up to town hall and warn my secretary Isabel," Sapphire replied. "I'm worried that she might be hurt." Sometime later, Sapphire and her secretary Isabel the Shih Tzu, who ran down and approached a small group of animals outside the real estate shop, Nuke and Holmes. "Mr. Nuke," Isabella called. "Mr. Nuke, I believe we have a serious problem," Sapphire shouted. The raccoon in the blue business suit with the tag read Tom Nook turned towards them. "What seems to be the problem?" Tom Nook asked, as a stern look never left his face. "The environment is changing. I believe it is somehow reacting to our presence on it," Sapphire exclaimed. "I know it because everything in my house started shaking and almost got destroyed," she said. "The same thing happened to Town Hall," Isabel added. Tom Nook rolled his baby blue eyes. "And what do you mean this is based on?" he asked in a snarky voice. Sapphire got down on her knees and drew a town with trees surrounding the dirt. "Look, this is the world, right?" she asked, looking around the group as if she was making a speech. She did notice that the other animals in the group, except for Tom Nook, all looked in surprise, their mouths agape. But how would they think of this world as a living being? If it were somehow conscious, then it would ultimately be aware of the effect on it, she continued. The little dog crowd scoffed. Right. The world is unconscious. It just makes it perfect," he joked. The dog tapped his foot 3 times. "Hello, anybody?" But nothing happened, which caused the other animals in town square to laugh. This made Isabel very angry. She had known the Mayor Sapphire since she was 13, and she knew Sapphire would never lie about something like that happening in her home, as well as the town hall. "You don't understand. If we made it too much of an impact, then this consciousness would try to snuff us out," Isabella cried, grinding her teeth. "I agree with Sapphire, and I think we're looking for a global catastrophe, and the likes of that we never met." Poodiggery and Poppycock, the mouse crowded in the crowd shouted. Sapphire snapped her fingers. "I think we all need to put the resources into full investigation. Perhaps even beginning a town-wide evacuation," she suggested. "Evacuation?" Tom Nook bellowed. "Tomorrow is the Harvest Festival. Do you know how much money we would lose?" He then motioned over the police dog from the other side of the square. "Copper, escort Miss Isabella and the mayor home. I do not wish to be bothered any further," he commanded. The officer escorted them away. Sapphire took her fist and shouted, "Damn you, Tom Nook! You could be the death of us all. Later that evening, Kyle watched out the window for the animals as they went about their business, fishing or catching butterflies. But it turned out to see Sapphire sitting on the couch sighing in sadness. Sapphire, is everything okay? Kyle asked, his voice sounding concerned. Sapphire looked up and sighed. Her eyes were filled with dread. Kyle, I was just thinking about our baby, and I want to name her Hope. She replied. Hope? Kyle questioned. Hope for a chance at tomorrow, Sapphire replied. Suddenly the mysterious voice from behind started to speak. Get out! Get out! Suddenly the other animals stopped outside stopped what they were doing, looked around. What was that noise? The little cat said, looking everywhere for the source of the noise. Oh no, Sapphire thought. She didn't have a good feeling about this. Without the warning, the ground began to shake. Oh my God, she shouted. She grabbed Kyle's hand and placed it over her stomach. We have to get out of this place. Why? It's only a small earthquake, Kyle argued as he shook his head. Sapphire squeezed his hand tighter and pulled him close. We have to get out of here now, Kyle, Sapphire yelled. Suddenly she opened the door and then ran out of the house. Wait, Sapphire called, catching up to them. The voice is still saying, get out now. All of a sudden, small cracks began to form on the world, and small gusts of air began to flow over them. What was that? Asked the hamster of crowd of animals. He then pulled out a pickaxe from his bag and cracked the ground. This was a grave mistake, as a small gust of wind had caused a tornado to erupt from the ground, and the hamster disappeared. All the other animals looked up and watched the whole thing in fear and amazement. Run! Isabella shouted at the top of her lungs. Everyone got up to the roof, and we have to get up high, Sapphire announced. All the animals could do what they could, climbed up to the top of the roofs to their homes, but as they watched the others, they swept by the tornado and killed. Oh my God, Sapphire, they're all dying, Kyle shouted in fear in his voice. Don't look, Kyle, don't look, Sapphire replied. Her heart became filled with dread. What the hell is that thing? The dog Sapphire and Isabella had seen in the town cried. Well, it's okay, it's safe up here, the frog reassured. I don't think so. Oh, Isabella shouted. Suddenly, the residents began to be pushed off the floor steps, forced by the wind of the tornado, as well as Kyle grabbing Sapphire's wrist and holding on to her dear life. Sapphire, he screamed. Kyle, hang on! Sapphire called as tears began to swell up in her eyes. I can't hold on, the wolf shouted back. You have to, for the baby, said Sapphire. Kyle's grip loosened and he tried to tighten it, but the wind had ripped them from the hand that they were holding on to. Kyle! No! No. Oh, Sapphire broke down in tears. She knew that she was left alone with the top of the roof with Isabella and her unborn daughter, Hope. No! Kyle shouted as the tornado whisked them away, never to be seen again. I'm so sorry, Mayor Sapphire, Isabella said comfortingly. Her eyes were filled with heartbroken tears. Of course, Sapphire backed out. It had been 10 hours since the tornado had struck down in Nookville, and now they were all left with debris. Sapphire was asleep on the ground, battered and bruised from the wind. She coughed herself up and woke up to feel slight movements in her stomach. Hope? Hope, you're alive! She shouted in relief. Then she stood up at her height and surveyed the destruction around her. Buildings and shredded to splinters, and streets flooded with carpets of wool and metal and shrouds of fine gray dust covering everything. And then there was only a handful of the other animals down in the town. The only remains of the ones that were fallen the victim of the tornado were their clothing. Oh my God, she said. Sapphire, Isabella called. Old Sapphire then turned her head to the right. Oh, over here, Mayor Sapphire. If you haven't warned us to climb up to the rooftops, we would have all been dead. Sapphire ran over to the small group of injured residents. How many survivors, she asked. Just a few of us and Tom Nook, Isabel replied. Tom Nook waved at them with a scowl on her face. With their faces turning red with anger, Sapphire threw Nook against the dead tree and grabbed him by the shirt. You piece of crap, she bowled, causing Nook to flinch. You had a chance to stop this, so help me. If we live through this, I am going to see you rot in prison. What are you going to do about it now, Mayor? A little squirrel asked. Aren't we? We're not out of this, Sapphire answered. She pointed at the goat and the bear. You both look for other survivors. She then pointed at Isabel. You get whatever food you can and bring it back here. The survivors nodded at Randolph as command. Who put you in charge? Tom Nook asked, dusting his suit. Determination in her heart. Sapphire answered him, God did, when he killed my husband. She then turned back and walked away. Soon enough, more survivors were there, being brought out to the clearing, but 2 of them were dying. This isn't going to stop, Sapphire proclaimed. The world is a rejoicing us. If we're going to live, we have to get out of this island. How? Isabella asked. First, we have to get out of the forest into the Forbidden Zone. It's the only way that we might be able to even see another island, explained Sapphire. The Forbidden Zone will be exposed. We'll be died out there, said a crow in one arm and bandage. No, Isabella shouted. Mayor Sapphire's right. We'll die here. Isabella looked around. Look, the world is getting rid of us. Don't you even get it? A dog in the crowd spoke up. Getting rid of us? You mean like it knows what it's doing? Yes, because we rolled on the dice too many times, Sapphire answered. I'm not leaving my sister, said the kangaroo in the crowd. I'll take thy chances here, said a bird who rolled his eyes. Fine, you can all stay here, but I'm going to try to save my baby, argued Sapphire as she walked away. Suddenly, the kicks the skunk, the local shoe salesman, ran over to Sapphire. I'll go with you. There's nothing left for me here, Kix chirped. So will I, Mayor, Isabella said. I would like to go too, said Tom Nook. Sapphire shook her head. Not a chance, she hiccuped, folding her arms. Tom Nook looked at her worryingly. Look, I know I messed up, but I think you're right, he lied. If we get through this and out of this forest, we might find another place to live. Sapphire let out a heavy sigh. She knew that Tom Nook was not a very nice raccoon, but she also knew that that it was for the best. Fine. She then turned to the crowd. If we find anything, we'll try to send help for the rest of you. She then turned to Isabel and the others. Let's go, she ordered. Tom Nook shook his head, turned his back as soon as they started walking. Come on, if you're coming, Mr. Nook, Isabella called. Yeah, right, behind you, Tom Nook replied. With a sneaky grin on his face, he pulled out a gun and cocked it. But the others didn't know. No. After what seemed to be like days of walking through the descent forest, Tom Nook, Kix, Isabel, and Sapphire all froze in amazement. They had just seen a vast space of nothing, almost like a desert. We've done it. We've reached the Forbidden Zone, Kix exclaimed. I've always heard stories about this place. I just never thought it was real, Isabella replied. It is real as my love for my unborn baby, said Sapphire, placing a hand over her stomach. So what exactly is your plan, Sapphire? Tom Nook asked, a hateful smile painted on herself across the face. Our ancestors came from us from another world. Maybe if their worlds are still out there, they're with life forms like us, Sapphire answered. Maybe there's even a world where we just learn to live on the other island, just on it. Kix started to sob quietly. Sapphire, Mayor Sapphire, you're so sweet and so strong. If we make it out of this, I'd like to be with you, he lemmered. Sapphire said, I'm sorry, Kix, but my heart is forever since to the permanent ink with the name. She closed her eyes. Kyle. It was a lucky wolf to have you, Sapphire, Isabella told her. Luck had nothing to do with it, Isabel, Sapphire sobbed. All of a sudden they heard a gunshot, and Isabella screamed in horror as they saw Tom Nook with the shotgun in his hands, standing over Kix's body. Sorry to cut the honeymoon short, growled at Tom Nook, pointing the gun at Isabella and Sapphire. Why you murdered him? Sapphire shouted, her hands clenched in a fist of rage. Your little fantasy of a world just ends here, Tom Nook skeet. Walk, he commanded. What the hell do you want with us, Mr. Nook? Isabella asked angrily. Walk, Tom Nook ordered. Sapphire and Isabella turned around and walked further into the desert with Tom Nook following them, keeping the gun trained on the girls in the Shih-Tzu, with their hearts shaking with fear. Soon enough, they came to a large hill. Tom Nook let out a roar. That's good. That's far enough. Sapphire and Isabella stopped and turned around, and Tom Nook pointed the gun at them. What are you going to do with us? Sapphire jeered, clutching Isabella's hand tightly. I'm going back to the town. I'm going to start to rebuild. I'll mate with females, and I'll take your place as mayor of Nookville. Tom Nook replied, his sadistic smile never leaving his face. Isabella snapped. Don't you get it? The world just doesn't want you here. It's not going to stop it until you're dead, she explained. It's a disaster. Disasters happen, the raccoon said in a business suit still argued. Then go ahead and die there. I'm leaving my baby and my friend, Sapphire roared and squeezing Isabella's hand tighter. Why would the raccoon Kunchino that known for years do this to them? Actually, you'll never be leaving here either, Mayor Sapphire, said Tom Nook. He then shot Sapphire in the shoulder, causing her to scream in pain at the sleeve of her pale pink shirt. Shirt was stained with red. She passed out, but she was still bleeding. Mayor, Isabella cried, holding the poor human girl close to her chest. Why did you do this? She retorted. Because when I'm mayor, I don't have pests like you, constantly trying to preach, and that's the world alive. You're both idealistic fools, Tom Nook ranted. The world is not the conspicuous. We are the conspicuous. And if the world is alive, it would feel for us. He then pulled 6 bullets off into the ground, but nothing happened. You see, he said. Isabella held Sapphire close as Tom Nook pointed his gun at her heart. And now you die, But suddenly a strange voice from the tornado struck. Huck, stop! Tom Nook froze and dropped his gun. He thought he was looking left for the source of the voice. Where did that come from? Nook, you have to run, Isabella cried. Shut up, Tom Nook replied as he continued to look for the source of the voice. Stop now, the voice commanded. Tom Nook's hand started to shake. Hello? He called. Then, without a warning, the ground began to shake and a large hole formed in the earth. Tom Nook screamed like he never screamed before as Isabella was still holding the injured girl. They watched a poor raccoon man struggle to hold on to the ledge of the hole. Mayor Sapphire! Isabel! Save me! I'm sorry! Tom Nook shouted, but Isabella shook her head and then turned away. Not after what you've done, she called. The last thing that Isabella heard from Nook was from him screaming to his death and plummeled in the darkness below. The hole that had begun to get smaller and smaller until it disappeared. Mayor Sapphire? Isabella cried, placing the girl flat down on her back. Are you okay? Say something. Slowly, Sapphire opened her eyes. Is it Isabel? What happened? She asked, looking around cautiously. Where's Tom Nook? Sapphire then noticed her shoulder was stained with blood. He's dead now, Isabel replied. Sapphire tried to stand up, but ended up flat on her back. She began to cry as Isabella carried her in her arms. Don't worry, Mayor, Isabel reassured her. Once we find a new island, we'll get you to a hospital. But Isabel didn't see the tears from Sapphire's eyes as they walked through the desert. Come on, just a little further, Isabella called. With Kicks and Tom Nook gone for good, Sapphire knew they were alone. Isabel, we have to stop. I'm so tired, Sapphire called back. Her feet were killing her. Please, Mayor, just a little more, Isabella cried. But Sapphire got down on her knees. Kyle, can you hear me? I don't know if you can, she prayed, but I just want you to know that I tried. I tried to save our baby, but I let you down, my love. No, we can't give up, Isabella pleaded. Suddenly a bright light shone over them, and something large descended from the ground. Sapphire then looked on her left to find a visor and make sure she wasn't hallucinating. Well, what is that? She asked. It's a helicopter, Isabella shouted, pointed up at the sky. Slowly a dark speck of the horizon came into view, moving rapidly towards us until the trees around the desert were disturbed by the hovering aircraft. Sapphire and Isabel just stood there, their mouths agape as the helicopter touched down on the large patch of sand into the wasteland. On the helicopter's side, there was a symbol, a white field with a radiating red sun. A tall boy who looked like to be in his teenage years hopped out from the helicopter and slowly went over to the girl in the Shih Tzu. He offered a badge inspection and then with a slight accent, he said, Do you need some help? Yes, Sapphire interjected. Isabella explained their situation and the boy nodded his head. I see, the boy said, feeling sympathetic towards them. He proceeded to load them into the helicopter, carrying Sapphire in his arms and comforting her. After for a long while, the aircraft alighted onto the platform and the boy lifted Sapphire onto a stretcher. Thank you so much, Sapphire's voice thundered as the 2 guard dogs carried them away. You're welcome, one of them said. With a smile on her face, Sapphire looked around to see that the city was well developed, with the high rise of the apartments going down several stories, and the residents as they waved passed by. The boy had placed his hand on her now bandaged shoulder and said, You're safe now, my friends. We've lived here for a long generation after generation and never been disturbed. Isabella and Sapphire cheered. "We made it, Hope," cried Sapphire, placing a hand on her stomach. "We made it, Isabel," she yelped. "I knew we could do it," replied Isabel. With tears of joy in her eyes, the guards escorted them to the hospital. Sapphire looked up at the sky. "Kyle," she whispered, "we're home," before gently rubbing her stomach and falling asleep. And that, my little pretties, was The Forbidden Zone, a Animal Crossing fanfiction written by Summer P. She also is known as AnimeMLPGamer123. Yeah. Summer P, I want to thank you so much for the story. This was excellent. I really do appreciate you writing this story. Now, first of all, before I get started with anything else happening and stuff like that, I am going to be completely honest with this review. Now, I'm going to try to keep it as short as I possibly can. So first of all, I'm going to say right now is that I actually found this story to be quite good. Even though I think I did spot maybe a few grammar errors along the way, but I could definitely say that the story was actually really good. Now, the fact that I do know it was a short story, but here's the thing. I don't have a problem with short stories. I never did. I obviously found this story to be really awesome. Like, the concept itself was just flat out perfect. It just made it flow well with the story. The grammar was good for most of the time. It was really nice. The sentence structuring was perfect. The storyline of how the episode went out, well, the fanfiction went out, the flow of it was just very well. And you know, I actually found this to be really sad, but really cute at the same time. I do remember Space Voyager read this story once, and I have to say it was really good. Now, I read this story once or twice, and before I actually narrated this, and I said it was really nice. I actually found it cute. Even though it's sad a bit, I can definitely admit it was a bit sad, but it's actually really good. Now, it's really awesome. Now, about this one story that I am hoping to narrate if I can get a chance to, which is Sapphire's Baby. Summer P, if you don't mind linking me that story, maybe I'll take a read at it, maybe if I get the chance to. But I can definitely say that story was pretty good too. Just as good as this one, I have to say. You did a really good job with this story, and I can definitely say, you know, there is a lot of stuff in there now in the story. You know, everything incorporated in it. It flows well, and I just obviously have to say that it was just flat out amazing. Like, I actually have never played Animal Crossing, so I don't really know too much of it, but I've heard of it, but I have not, you know, played the game, so I obviously don't know, you know, so much of it, but I could definitely say that this story was actually really nicely done. And I could definitely say there was a lot of time and effort into the story. So that's one thing I could definitely say is that it's really good. And there's a lot of time and effort into it. So it's one reason why I actually like the story. Now, is there any negatives that I do have to say about it? I actually don't have anything negative to say about that story. So I could definitely say, the story was actually really good, and it flows really well. And this is on fanfiction.net. If you guys are asking where the story is from, it's on fanfiction.net. If you guys want to look up the story for yourself, you're more than welcome to. You're more than welcome to, you know, take a look at the story for yourself. It's actually really good, and I can definitely say now that this story was actually really nice. I thought it was cute too. And it is sad. I can definitely guarantee that it was sad at certain parts. But everything about the story flows out well. And I definitely have to say there's a lot of time and effort into the story. So it was kind of one of the reasons why I actually, you know, think that this story was actually really good, which it is. Now, am I going to read the sequel to it? Possibly, pretty much I will. Most likely, if I get a chance, but, you know, I could definitely really say right now that this story, of its own self, was amazing. And I can definitely say, you know, there's a lot of time and effort into the story. So I can definitely say there's a lot of time and effort into it. Okay. I think I kind of explained, you know, long enough. This review is long as it is. So I'm going to be wrapping up this review and we will be good. Alright. I'm going to say right now that this is simply my own personal opinion, and if you disagree with me, that's fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions regards to these creepypastas, or fanfictions in this case, and this is simply my own personal thoughts. My final rating of this story would have to be I'm going to give this one a 10 out of 10. It's a great concept, great storyline. The grammar was really good, same with the sentence structuring. Paragraph structuring was good. Everything about it was just amazing. And it was really helping out more with the story. And it really helps a lot. Like, this is the reason why I like to see, you know, grammar just as good as this. And even time and effort into stories. So, anyways, with that being said, what did you all think about this fanfiction? Did you all enjoy it? Did you not? Also, what we have done personally to help make this fanfiction a lot better? Leave me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section down below. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. If you're brand new here to this channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe because I make brand new videos every single day. Don't forget to ring the notification bell to my upload so you guys won't miss an upload. And like always, please roll the outro because I'm out of here and I'll be seeing you all in the next story. Peace out.